Did you know that by eating processed meat, you're giving yourself the same risk of cancer as smoking cigarettes? According to the American Institution for Research on Cancer, processed meat is known as a definite cause of cancer, and that's in the same category as smoking and alcohol. It's scary, but that is the reality nowadays. That's just one of the many reasons that I chose to stay away from meat completely and chose to live a vegetarian lifestyle. And today I'm going to encourage all of you to do the same, or at least give it a try, along with the millions of other people who have chose to make the change as well. I've been a vegetarian for about 6 years now, and not once since I've made the change have I regretted it. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it's definitely worth it, and it's hard to go back once you do. There are so many benefits being a vegetarian has, but I'm going to focus on 3 today. And the 3 are that you're going to help save animals, you're going to help yourself have a longer and healthier life, and you're going to do the planet a huge favor by helping to preserve our natural resources and cutting down pollution caused by animal agriculture. First of all, going vegetarian will help save a ton of animals. I want you all to think about how many animals you think are killed each day just for the consumption of Americans. According to researcher and author Eric Marcus, each day over 22 million animals are slaughtered to support the American appetite. That number is extremely high and continues to grow. Eric Brett states in his article, Animal Rights and Vegetarianism, that modern agriculture commonly keeps cows, calves, pigs, ducks, and other animals in overcrowded stalls, cages, and sheds and crates where they are often unable to turn or take a step for their entire life. Deprived of care, exercise, sunlight, and even the feeling of grass beneath their feet, these living, breathing, thinking animals who have feelings just like our own suffer and die at a rate of millions per day just so we can enjoy eating them. Deciding what we eat means choosing between the horrors of factory farming and respect for animals. They experience love, happiness, loneliness, and fear just as dogs, cats, and people do. More than 25 billion animals are killed by the meat industry each year in ways that would horrify any compassionate person. The average American meat eater is responsible for the abuse and death of about 90 animals per year. It's sad, but it's the truth, and it's up to you to do something about it. You might just appreciate your meals a little more knowing that no animals suffered along the way. Not only being a vegetarian is beneficial by saving animals, but eating a healthy diet full of fresh fruits, vegetables, wheat, and soy is best for living a longer, healthier, and more enjoyable life. According to former surgeon General C. Everett Koop said that 70% of all Americans are dying from diseases based on their eating habits. The China Health Project is the largest population study on diet and health found to date, and found that vegetarians live about 7 years longer and vegans live about 15 years longer than meat eaters do. They also found that people who eat the least amount of animal products have had lower risks of cancer, chronic diseases, and other heart attacks and stuff like that. Just think, Dr. Gerald Diaz stated that recently 143 million pounds of beef were recalled due to bacterial infection with E. coli. 37 million pounds of that was dumped into our schools. Being a vegetarian will also help you avoid consuming toxic chemicals. The Environmental Protection Agency states that about 95% of pesticide residue, including toxic chemicals, hormones, and steroids in our diet, comes from eating meat. Many people used to think that a high meat diet was good for your health, and because a lot of people are finding out all these problems that eating meat has, it's now showing that vegetarians are becoming more and more common in our society. Lastly, raising and eating meat leaves behind an environmental toll that generations to come will be forced to pay. For example, Circle 4 Farms in Milford, Utah, which raises about 2.5 million pigs per year, creates more waste than the entire city of Los Angeles, and that's just one farm. Each year, the nation's factory farms collectively produce about 2 billion tons of manure, which is rated as one of our country's top 10 pollutants. Along with the methane gas released by cows, pigs, and poultry, the ammonia gases from urine, along with toxic chemicals, pesticides, and exhaust from machines used to create feed for the animals. In addition of wasting tons and tons of land for the use of animal culture is also a problem. According to the journal Soil and Water, about 1 acre of land could use to be producing 50,000 potatoes, 40,000 tomatoes, and 30,000 carrots, or just 250 pounds of beef. The planet can only provide us with so many natural resources, and it's up to us to depend on how we use them. To conclude, I would highly recommend switching to the vegetarian lifestyle, or at least give it a try. Trust me, once you start, it's hard to go back. The meat industry is focused on quantity over quality, and the outcomes of that are life-threatening. Today I explained to you a few of the benefits being a vegetarian has, like saving the lives of animals, making your life healthier and last longer, and helping the environment. It's up to you to open your eyes and to make a change.
So Owen, what did you think?
I thought that the opener was pretty effective by saying that there's like a bunch of carcinogens in processed meat, like cigarettes, because that's not really something I've ever thought about. So that kind of got me thinking a little bit. And I think he used a lot of good like numbers, like saying how many like animals or how many pounds of beef could be raised on that land and how much like vegetables and stuff like that could be produced. And I think he used a lot of good just statistics and numbers to back up your points. And also I thought that the conclusion was pretty good too. Yeah.
All right. Now you got a dramatic claim as your attention device. You might want, you want to make sure that you've got the data correct in the way it's being presented. I think you need to give us a little bit more context on that. The transition to the topic was also very good. There's an excellent preview of what the supporting points are going to be, so you're solid there when it comes to the organization at the beginning of the speech. I do think that there are a couple of points that are missing in the speech. Since you are advocating a policy, we need to know what things about that policy are practical to do and why the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. There's not really any discussion of what the potential disadvantages might be, or there's not really much. I mean, most people's resistance to maybe changing over, it doesn't have anything to do with whether or not they think animals are good or bad, or whether or not they want to save the planet. It has to do with their lifestyles and convenience. And you're saying, once you go that way, it's easy to do that. The question is, how do you get people to go that way? And how can you overcome their resistance there? And I think you need to do a little bit more in regard to that. I thought that you did a very nice job, though, developing your arguments on the environmental issues, on the health issues, on the humanity issue. I think there's some claims that probably need to be developed a little bit more. There's some assertions that are made about the way animals emote, think, process, and there's a lot of equivocation that's going on there that I think people who are committed to consuming the foods that they already consume would probably say, well, you know, I'm not exactly sure that I see a cow as having the same emotional range as a human being, and that's maybe not something that they're going to agree with. That doesn't mean that you couldn't make an argument about it. I'm just saying you just make it a presupposition, and I think you need to provide some proof on those points. The movement between the first and the second point was very clear. I could tell that you were in the third point. I think you needed a little bit stronger transition when you went to that third point. You did a good job citing your evidence, and I like some of the quotes that you had, the way they were phrased. I do think you want to be a little careful, though, about some of the language that you use, because there was one section where you said anybody who, you know, would think differently. It's not exactly I'm paraphrasing here. You made it sound like anybody who didn't think the same as you lacked compassion and was basically an a-hole. And that's not really the way you want to paint your audience, you know, because my guess would be 95% of your audience is not going to share your habit here, and you don't want to call people names and suggest that they are uncompassionate. But that's why you want to build that issue and say, look, all of us want to be compassionate. None of us hate animals. Nobody wants to be cruel or mean to anybody. But think about it and put yourself in this situation. If that's the way you feel about animals, why would you feel differently about a cow or a pig or a chicken or whatever than you do your cat or your dog? You know, and I think that that's the kind of language that would get people to sympathize more with your point of view, rather than, well, if you don't see the horrible way that pigs are treated, you lack compassion. Okay, moving on. All right, thank you.